Well, you will have seen that the title for this video is Stand Up, the Real Dan Christensen. Now, why on earth would we want to go into that? Because Beth and I have been known on our channel as a feel-good channel, and we have remained silent in spite of all the abuse and hate. There is a whole hate campaign going on from this man, and we have remained silent. Now, we've done that in the hope that he would eventually get tired of it, but it would seem that we have become the main source of material for him. So it's time for us to find out who the real Dan Christensen is, and perhaps he may stand up then. Now, just to take you back to the beginning, when I moved into this area, I went and was introduced to his wife Marife at the church when I first attended the church. By the way, I am a member of that church, and I am very heavily involved in activities which involved the church, which included spending some 74,452 pesos on helping to finish it. Okay, now I eventually was invited over, and we went to meet Mr. Dan, as he is sometimes known. He is also known as the Camel, and he is also known on a much wider basis as the Angry American. I wonder why. Now, I'm not exactly a confrontational type of person. I don't enjoy confrontational conversation. I prefer to be in harmony. Somebody has a different opinion to me, that's fine, and I can have it, and I would hope that I could claim the same honour in my own opinion, the same privilege, I should say. So, it very quickly became obvious to me that I would not be able to spend much time in the company of this man, because during the conversation, the early conversation, he proudly told me, "I'm an arsehole." Now, excuse the language, but this is associated with this man, who even now screams obscenities at my wife and me as we pass in the car. C-U-N-T is a common word that he uses. The F word, all roll off his tongue as his daily vocabulary. And he does this even in the company of his wife and child, and has admitted the same to me. Now, very, very quickly he realized that I didn't use this kind of language, and with a great deal of control, he actually stopped using it to me. I indicated that he would be a much happier man if he stopped using profanity, and if he stopped using the phrase, "I hate this." Anyway, that was my early advice. But my early advice to myself was, stay away from this man. Unfortunately, he came and visited me at my house. And during that time, he stayed for about 3 hours, during which hospitality dictated that I would agree to being a captive audience. And I was a captive audience to his adventures in I think Idaho or Ohio or wherever it is, or Iowa that he comes from. I'm really not that sure. But he comes from America, and during his time there, it was mainly to do with taking drugs. His adventures as Mr. Wonderful, where he had sex with 4 people at any given time. He was having sex with the boyfriends, the girlfriends and wives of the people that he knew was friends or acquaintances with. In fact, one of the quotes that I remember the most about him was that he said, "I realized that I would have to leave the country or someone was going to kill me." So, here's the real Dan Christensen. What is his? I made a few notes because it's quite an adventure. If I was to be running a TV program in which I would be saying, "Dan Christensen, this is your life," this would be quite a trip. So, violent assaults. violent assaults are his way of doing it, and the number of times that he's told me that various people in his confrontations with guns, knives and everything have been threatened with, "I'm going to stick that up your ass." That's his very common phrase. This is the man that professes to criticize others on the basis of they're not Christians. So, violent assaults. What's his record? On record that he has admitted to me. He assaulted his brother-in-law, Gideon, and when, during that event, the father-in-law stepped up and started to protect his son, Dan told him to shut the F up and sit down. Right, so that's just in the family. Now, a policeman tried to take the key out of his bike. Dan got him apparently in a thumb lock and had held him there until the friend that was travelling with him said, "Dan, you better let go. Here's the other cop and he's going to pepper spray you." Now, they fled that scene, and apparently, luckily for them, no action was ever taken. He has other assaults, which he has told me about. He assaulted a young boy when they had an altercation, a difference, a little spill on his bike, going around a corner at the school, and the young boy who was driving that tricycle came up and said, "I'm so sorry, I'm so..." Dan hit him so hard, he said, "I didn't hit him, I just pushed him." Well, it was quite a push because this boy tumbled back and hit the ground. That should be on record, because Dan then considered that he had the complaint, took his case to the barangay captain and was pressing for some kind of damages to his bike. The parents of the boy were there and asserted that he had hit the boy twice. Dan denies this. Who knows? I wasn't there. But the barangay captain eventually said, "Well, what do you want to do? Do you want to call the police?" Dan said to me, as soon as he mentioned the police, I realized that I should not take this any further. Why is best known to him. So, that's not all. Then we have the case of the traffic difference of opinion in a traffic, in which he and his African-American friend chased down a van driver, chased him down until they finally got him cornered. Dan wrenched the door of the van open and was assaulting the man inside who was trying to get away from him across the passenger seat, not successfully. Now this one was actually, a case was actually taken against Dan, and his father paid a lot of money to save him from going to prison. Is this on record? It certainly should be. Now, where are we looking at? All of these were assaults which revealed to me that this is a man that I shouldn't be with, because I didn't want to be present with him when he committed his next assault. He is a big man, 350 pounds, I think, and he tells me that he's 6'3". He is a big man in a country of small people. Now, he uses this much to his advantage, as any bully would. And in one particular case, when he was at the Barracuda, as a Barracuda resort, and he went there because it was good for the internet, a good Wi-Fi connection, and he found that somebody who was in a party and had had a couple of drinks was urinating near or behind his motorcycle. Well, big man that he is, he went over, and small Filipino man that the man was, he then confronted him in his usual violent way, that he was going to teach the man a lesson if he didn't get away from his bike. Well, unfortunately for Dan, there was another small Filipino who joined forces with his friend, and I think that they taught Dan quite a lesson. Now, then they left, and Dan was still there with his bike when someone came over from the party and advised Dan, "You should leave now because they've gone home to get a gun." Dan fled that scene, and did not appear in that area, did not go to Taliban for another month. He hid out and he went straight home, and he evacuated his wife and child for fear of the reprisals that he thought were coming, and holed up with his own gun in his house. Marifi and the child were sent over to their father-in-law. So this is the kind of response to him that he generates. He is known as the angry American, and when people are bullied by him, he has this feeling of great power. Now, I'm assuming that when I came along, I was not prepared after a while to do this, and I made it clear that I was not going to spend any time with him. Now, gradually, this is, of course, for a man like him, the ultimate betrayal, somebody who doesn't want his company. And finally, when we happened to cross paths in Taliban, he announced that he would visit me again, and foolishly, I didn't say, "No, you're not." So the relationship started up again and was ongoing when we began our YouTube channel, which he was already in the process of doing. Now, he was very good about offering help on the camera, on how to do this, the technical side of things, to Beth. And did, in fact, when we were looking for a camera, give one of his cast-off cameras. It never worked, and we gave up on that camera, and that's the camera that we gave to Lovely May. Lovely May owns that camera now, because it was never any use to us. But even so, rather than accept a gift, we gave him two turkeys, two live turkeys, two grown turkeys, and was it two chicks?
Yeah.
And two chicks. He says that they died on him. Just maybe this was because of the way that he handled them. Who will know? Now, right now, the situation on assaults and indiscretions is almost endless. His wife and Lovely May had to go to the deaf and dumb school, which is in Taliban, because of some kind of association which he struck up with a 15 or 16-year-old child who is deaf and dumb. Well, Dan took this very seriously and started to learn the sign language, because he wanted to be able to express his magic tricks, which for some strange reason he was performing outside the school. Now, who knows how this child could have got his phone number, but indeed she did have his phone number, and apparently had 50 texts proclaiming, "I love you." Who's to know what that is? But he's very open about everything that he tells about other people, even though his claims and his accusations are unsubstantiated. Now, in the past, I've issued an open challenge to anyone who declares that they know the truth about how Beth and I conduct our help. Now, we have a very, very simple way of conducting the help that we give. All the money that comes in is recorded. All the money that goes out is recorded. And right now, for the church, which we helped to finish, we gave full credit all the way for the work that he did from the money that he received on behalf of the church, which he did that work. I don't know that he didn't do that work. Pastor Timio did the work, and the Superman team, what we call the Superman team. All of that was done by the pastor. And no one is trying to take credit for that, because we don't need to take credit, because we have fully documented our contribution. And our contribution was to take a project which had been staggering along, incomplete, with an endless work that should be being done, but never was. So the claim that he made, which was that the team were paid, is not actually true, because we are now pledging to pay the last week of work that was done on the roof, I believe, and we are going to honour that unpaid week's work for that work crew. So, what did we spend? Well, actually, we spent close on 75,000 pesos. How do you know that? We showed on our videos, as we always do, we showed that we personally, that's Beth and I, pledged to honour a debt if it was not funded by our family of subscribers. And we pledged that we would pay that because we went to our friend at the Ambacon hardware store, and we took all of the materials for that on credit. Now, what kind of materials? We're talking about 40 bags of cement, about gravel, about sand, about rebar, about 18,000 pesos in wages.
Hollow blocks, 100 pieces.
We're talking about, as Beth just said, 100 pieces of hollow block, rebar. All of this stuff was paid for by us. It was all, we did this on a leap of faith, knowing we felt that we could trust that the money would come in. And we did that on the same basis that we did the other two houses, the rack houses. We started it with nowhere near enough money to pay for it, and we pledged that we would finish those houses, and we did. We pledged that we would finish the church in 6 days. The work that had been done up to that point had been done, and it had been done by Dan and his subscribers and Pastor Timio and the work team. Nobody ever tried to take credit for that. We don't need to take any credit for that. What we take credit for is getting the damn job finished, so that in spite of all of the bad hate campaign, everybody was there on Sunday and had a feast at the end of it with lechon and rice. Everybody got fed. It was a modest little feast. We gave ice cream. We had a share out from our balikbayan boxes. Now, what we do is go in and do the work. We get the work done, and we account with complete transparency on everything that is paid for. Now, how would anybody know whether what we had spent was equal to what our claim was? It's not difficult. How much do 40 bags of cement cost? It's not hard. If a man is paid 500 for a day's work and he works for 6 days, how much is that going to cost? It's not difficult to work out the truth of when things are paid for. We have every single item itemized, recorded, hard copy and on video on an almost daily work in progress basis. And that's how we work. And that's how we have been able, while Dan's working on this great project of the church, we have built 15 houses. We are now on our next house. We have taken a child and we are going to help her to get treatment. It's a heartbreaking thing, and yet here we are being accused by a man who has so little to boast in terms of help that he should be ashamed of himself. So, do we want to have anything to do with him? No, thank you. Even if I were to extend a hand of civility, that's all it would be, because this is not someone who I would choose to have as a friend. Now, what else can we say? He is accusing me of not being a member of a church. Excuse me, what does it take to be a member of a church? Every Sunday I use my truck and my expenses, and I pick up 40, sometimes more people, men, women, children, and I bring them to the church. And I go to different barangays and I collect them. They know me, they come with me, I drop them off safely at church, and guess what? Afterwards I take them home. We go out to all the barangays and we share what we have in balikbayan boxes. How do you know that? There are videos to show that we do what we do. So this is an attempt to put this to rest. Nobody is trying to take any credit away, because there is no need. Because if we want to look for credit that we can rightly take, then we don't have to look very far. Now, on the other hand, Dan has gone around and made video without our agreement and permission, and he has videoed projects that we have done, and now he's posted them on Facebook, on YouTube. I don't have to tell you this and have you, well, did he really do that? Because yes, he did. Somebody pointed out to him, well, wait a minute, Dan, when Terence happened to get a little bit of the church in the video, you were complaining, and yet here you are doing a video of the pastor's house, which was Terence and Beth's project. So, but that's not all. Knowing that Beth and I were away from home, he crept like a thief in the night, came up to our home on the pretext of looking for Pastor Timio. I'm not quite sure how that would work, but was told, even as he came up the drive, that Pastor Timio is not there. But he then went on and made a video about our home when we were not there, knowing that we were not there, knowing that anybody of a reasonable mind would not do that. He violated our privacy, and he still did the video. How do you know that he did this? As I say, like a thief in the night, he posted the video. Now, as far as assaults go in our direction, he has spoken to Pastor Timio about how it would be a good idea to send several guys up to beat me up at my home. That would be a good idea. And how about I set the Volkswagen on fire? Now, that's not all, because he had a friend of his send us an anonymous threatening letter. Now, in the anonymous threatening letter, the man advised us that we should stop squabbling about Dan. And what would happen to us if we didn't? Well, we would very quickly find out how dangerous things could be. Me and my family would find that out. Now, what was the only thing that was wrong with this? Well, apparently the man was as stupid as Dan was in coming and doing a video about our home in our absence and then posting it. The man sent his anonymous threatening letter on his Facebook page, and a copy of this Facebook page with the man's name and his photograph are on the blotter. The blotter is the police daily journal of threats and complaints that come in. And Dan's photograph, which the policeman laughed at when he saw, yes, we know this man very well, all of those complaints are on the blotter at the local police station. Now, why would you do that? Because as many of our subscribers said, this is not a man that is to be trusted, and he is cowardly because he is a bully. He is a big man in a nation of small people, and he goes around with a war following behind him, the angry American, and that's how he gets his feeling of power. Now, this is a very clear statement. Now, if at some point he wants to prove all of his outrageous, libelous, slanderous statements about me and my wife and how we have stolen money from poor people, I'm assuming that as an American with an idea of the laws of slander, he would have some proof. Wonderful. I look forward to seeing this proof. And as I've said in the past, here's a challenge for you, you knight in shining armour, that's a little bit, getting a little bit messy. Show me the proof. Let's go down to the police station. Take out a case against me, which, with the courage that you have in using your YouTube channel to launch this hate campaign against me and my family, you must have some proof. Let's see it, Mr. Brave Man. And by the way, you asked me never to mention that you at one point very kindly loaned me $400, and you asked me not to mention that you had done that. Why did you do that? Why did you say that? Because you didn't want to invite any unwanted robbers, home invasions, if they thought that there was money at your home. And then guess what you did? When you came to my home, sneaking around, you then went on your comments page and you said, there are pots of money, boxes of money. For all I know, you said, there's boxes of money up there. And what do you think that that did on your definition for the safety of my family? Not very much. Mr. Fairman, Mr. Fairplay, Mr. Knight in shining armour, who is standing up for the poor people while he sits on his fat rear end and does nothing, why don't you come out and stand up and prove what you say you know? Oh, I don't want to go into detail. I'm not going into that, you said on one of your comments when somebody said, well, how do you know this? I know the truth. I know what's going on. Do you? Then share it. Put it right. If I'm the criminal that you say that I am, put it right. You're the man to do it. The bully of Burgos, the camel, the ugly, angry American. It's not so good when you're listening to the stuff leveled back at you, is it? But you know what? I can prove what I say. I can prove that you are learning the deaf and dumb language. I can prove that you had assaults. I can prove all of those things. You're the bully of Burgos. The bully of Burgos. That's who you are. This has been a foreigner in the Philippines.
Yeah, so
Thanks for looking at.
yeah, to our supporters, we try to be calm, we try to be quiet, but sometimes we need to stand for our right.
We had enough.
Yeah, we had enough. It's like a water in the glass.
And we have a video that is possibly for you, Mr. Dan, and for your information. If someone says something about you which is not true and which is slanderous, you can take that person to the Burgos captain and you can get him to prove his allegations or retract his statement. So, if I've been very nasty to you on this, take me to the barangay captain and complain, and then ask me to prove that what I'm saying is true. Be delighted to. Bye for now. So, here's an afterthought for the people that fear for my safety because Dan is known as being a violent man. Well, here I am, and you know what? Thinking about it, these are the odds that you like. I'm 78 years old, weigh 140 pounds, and I'm 5'8". Wow, those are the odds that you like, aren't they, Mr. Bullierbogus? Perhaps you won't need to send a pile of guys along here to teach me a lesson. You might even be able to do it yourself. Bye for now. And by the way, let's not forget how short your memory is. Because remember, I don't suppose you do remember that when you first came here, as you were telling me, that your in-laws, your family needed your help and asked you for 50,000 pesos because your father-in-law needed surgery. What was your response? I remember you telling me, I told them, no way, but I'll buy a piece of property from you. So, they had to give you a piece of property and you gave them the help they needed on their surgery of the father. So, how much did you learn over the years when your mother-in-law, as you described to me, needed what could be a life-saving hysterectomy, because the hysterectomy was now at a point where, as you described, if a blood vessel breaks, she could die. So, armed with that information, I had a talk with a sponsor of ours who has been very kind in the past. He actually said to me, I have 53,000 pesos which I have been saving just in case you get in trouble with NISA and need more money for NISA's operation, which, I'll just remind you, was supposed to be a 500,000 peso operation. We were told, I think, 500,000 pesos. We signed on the dotted line saying that we would be responsible, Beth and I would be responsible for that. Now, that's all history. But right about that time, my sponsor was holding, just in case, he was holding 53,000 peso to one side that was for us. He had also given us 43,000 pesos, which we could use in case we needed attorney's fees if we were to go with our plan at the time of starting a foundation to help people. So the 43,000 was ours to do that. Our sponsor said, if you want to, I will give you the 53,000 and you, at your discretion, can give the 43,000 that you have been holding for your potential attorney fees, and that will meet the cost. Knowing this, we went to you, Mr. Dan, and we had a little interview with you in your hut, as you call it, and I told you then, I asked you then, what would you want to give? We're here to find out what you would want to donate towards the cost of your mother-in-law's operation. Now, we'd already had a Power of Prayer meeting in which we had all prayed, me included, had all prayed that help would come. It was after that that I spoke to our sponsor. And then, armed with that information, I went to you with Beth as my witness, and we asked you, what would you like to give? And your reaction, and I'm very good at remembering conversations, your reaction was, who told you? I haven't got any money. Who told you I had money? Beth then informed you immediately, well, actually, Marife told us you had 40,000 saved for some work on your house. Your response to that was, well, if you're listening to my wife, she's insane. I then repeated the question. I said, Dan, it's a very simple question. what do you want to donate toward your mother-in-law's, Marifi's mother's life-saving operation? And your answer to that was, well, how much has your sponsor given you? How much do you have already pledged? I said, no, the question is, how much do you want to give to the operation? And you said, I've got no money. So I said to Beth, we should go. And that's what we did. And then we gave the 43,000 that we were holding in our attorney's fees account to the operation of your mother-in-law. So, where were you on your father-in-law's operation? Apparently nowhere. Where were you on your mother-in-law's life-saving operation, in which your wife cries on the video that we made of our, have a look at it, our power of prayer? And your wife sobbed and had us all crying because of the possible loss of her mother. Where were you then? Well, we know, don't we? But you did come forward and pay, I think, 300 so that she could come home in a van. That was big. Wow, 300. Did that come out of the 40,000 pesos? I wonder. But then, that is how you do treat your wife. Why don't people see through this? I remember how you treat your wife very well, because that's why I stopped seeing you. That was part of the video that I made saying why I don't speak to Dan, which at the time that we took it down in the name of trying to bring about some peace, we took that down. It had 6,000 views in a very, very short time, because people were interested in knowing, oh, why would I not be speaking to Dan? Well, I said it in that video, but I took it down because somebody said, wouldn't it be the Christian thing to do, to take it down and hope that that will bring about peace? Well, did it? Well, we've been watching your idea of making peace on your videos, haven't we? We've been watching that, and we've been maintaining silence while you have proceeded in your normal way. You've been doing a very good job of acting. I must commend you on acting. But I remember the real Dan Christensen. I remember when I was broken down at the side of the road, and you very kindly stopped to see what was wrong, and your wife, Marife, started to get out of the car, and she got out of the truck, and you turned and you snarled at her like she was a dog. And for my viewers, excuse my language, but you snarled at her and you said, get back in the fucking truck. We don't need you out here. Now, somehow you've managed to just smooth all the edges off that, haven't you? Good job. That's all.